everything okay, mi amor?
Yeah, everything's gonna be great.
You better run for your life.
I want to go ahead and I want to move on to the next big part of my stream. And for those that don't know, Barry Season 4 just premiered its first 2 episodes, chat. Of the final season, by the way. This is it. This is done. Some people were even questioning whether we were going to get this final season just because of the fact that with the pandemic and how that delayed a number of projects, chat. Some shows that should have gotten their final seasons, those are all canceled, got their legs knocked around. Or some people were speculating, like, as amazing as Barry is, it doesn't have the highest of viewerships, but the quality of it is so good. But thankfully, it got its 4th and final season, chat. We have the final 8 episodes, which will be coming out over the next several weeks, all the way towards the end of May. But they do have the first 2 episodes of season 4 out right now, and I will be talking about them. Again, I won't be doing any specific spoilers for these 2 episodes, but in order to talk about them and provide you with some context, I will have to spoil elements of seasons 1, 2, and 3, especially 3, especially the finale of 3, chat. But for those that don't know, season 4, these first 2 episodes, it immediately takes place after the attempted murder of the character of Jim Moss, chat, the father of Detective Moss, who Barry did indeed murder in season 1. And Barry Berkman, he finds himself in prison and continues to mentally and physically unravel as the various people connected to him try to exploit their connections to him, to Barry, for their own selfish gains. Before we kind of go into just the specifics, as much as I want to with these first 2 episodes, I did want to just talk about, the first 3 seasons of Barry, just kind of Bill Hader in general. Like, Bill Hader, he's popped up in a lot of different projects for, I feel like, for 20 years. Obviously, probably outside of this show, he's best known for being a cast member, writer, actor on SNL. Doing a number of very funny skits, and he's popped up in a number of films, chat, comedies, dramedies. But I did like it when he would pop up in different genres. To me, even though I thought the movie had a number of issues, he was one of the highlights, I thought, in It Chapter 2, It Part 2, where it dealt with more of the adult characters in that. Really liked him and really liked his role. He brought a lot to that. And just in some other things, I always thought he was very funny, and, he always was able to do comedies very well, but also handle more dramatic fare. And I feel like, Barry is kind of like his magnum opus at this point, which is this, this dark, black comedy series where a Marine turned hitman who suffers from, depression, goes to LA to complete a job, and while on that job, he realized that his mark is a wannabe actor or someone who wants to become an actor, and he realizes, like, that's what I want my life to be. That's my true calling. I want to become an actor, and he comes across numerous characters, chat, played by, Henry Winkler, and a number of other, Sarah Goldberg, Sally, who becomes his girlfriend, Anthony Kerrigan, who plays this Chechen mobster named Noho Hank, and because of Barry's past, which involves his handler Stephen Root as the character of Fuches, things escalate, things go crazy, and you have a mixture of the criminal element in LA and the international criminal element mixed in with just the selfishness of Los Angeles and the selfishness of the Hollywood system. And it's, I think it's one of the best, crime series, drama series, out right now, chat, to me. But like, Barry is neck and neck with other shows like, The Sopranos and Breaking Bad, and also more recently, something like Better Call Saul, which just wrapped up its final season. Almost feels like it take place in those same worlds. It's so well done. And, Bill Hader, he's everything. He's a producer, he's the writer, he's the director of a number of episodes on the show. I mean, he just really shows like, wow, I want to see this guy just in tons of different genres. He just brings so much, and this character is fantastic, despite how horrible of a human being he is. And just kind of getting into these first 2 episodes, I think one of the best new things about this particular season, at least with episode 1 and 2, just the season being the final season of Barry, is the environmental change for the series. Like, Barry, he is now in prison. This takes place immediately after the events of when he attempted to kill Jim Moss, and he was tricked by Henry Winker's character. And we just see his continuous psychological and physical decline, and his selfishness on full display. Like, he is in such a weird state of mind now. I mean, I think, initially, for a lot of these shows, we start cheering for characters who are doing bad things because there's something about them that grounds them. Like a Tony Soprano, and especially like a Walter White, a man who has horrible circumstances shoved at him, and you think he's trying to do the right thing, but you realize, like, oh, this character's like really, really selfish. And same thing with something like Saul Goodman, Jim McGill from Better Call Saul. And we are now at that point where really, like, Barry's just overt selfishness it's so stark and so clear that we as the audience are going like, dude, are you kidding me? That you feel like that? I'm the victim. Like, he has that mentality. He's just so emotionally stunted because of a mixture of PTSD, because of the fact that he's been manipulated by, everyone he's ever come across, even before the events of this show. Stephen Root, who again is excellent. He is excellent. Stephen Root is one of the greatest character actors alive today. He's one of my favorite. Every time I see Stephen Root, it's like, oh, Stephen Root. I love him, Chad. Again, he's one of those guys like Bill Hader. You can put him in any genre. He can be in a comedy. He can be in something like Office Space. Don't take my sleeper. Or another, like an animated show, like King of the Hill, Chad, or even something that's like really dark and dramatic, like Barry. And any scene he's in, he just commands the room. He's just so funny, and you both love him and hate him and resent him. And he's great, but you see that character manipulate him, and then like everyone else from the past seasons, Chad, whether it be the character of Sally or whether it be the character of Gene Cousineau, and I love that. I love that about this show. But yeah, Barry at this point, he is at his absolute lowest point. You realize, you already realized this, in the last, definitely by the end of season 1. Oh, this guy's crazy. He's insane, and he is so incredibly narcissistic that he constantly views himself as the victim in whatever situation he's in. He has this self-loathing, but he feels like, well, I'm doing all these things for other people. That's why I do bad things. He's making these excuses. And it's just like, man, you're just watching this guy just completely unravel in these last 2 episodes. And, but other than that, other than just him, we also see like all these other characters unraveling. Even when these characters seemingly they're in a much better place in their lives, even after their experience with Barry. But like Barry, they're very similar to him in a way. They are all succumbing to their own greed and narcissism. And even though they can completely walk away from all of this and move on and actually be happy, none of them are satisfied. And they always want more. They want to take more. And that's what causes conflict in the show. That's what causes this entire series to continue on. And what they're setting up, at least from what I could see, Chad, no one's going to get a happy ending because they keep making these mistakes. But at the same time, people will be like, well, that's frustrating to watch. It's like, the thing about that is, because these characters are so selfish and narcissistic, it's like, it makes sense. It wouldn't be earnest if they said, I'm going to take the high road with this one. It's like, no, of course they wouldn't do that based on what we've seen of them in these last 3 seasons. Just Barry, their exposure to him has brought out their worst attributes. It's made them worse people. They were always bad people, but like Barry was just that spark, that match that just ignited everything. And we're just really seeing how truly awful some of these people are, and how I imagine a lot of their finales, their end will not be good for them. This character, like I brought up Stephen Root as Fuches, he's great. He's in a similar situation the start of the season as Barry. He's in the same prison as him. And I love in the span of 2 episodes because Fuches is just as, perhaps even more, maybe not as crazy as Barry, but probably a little more selfish and more narcissistic than him. He constantly can't decide what he wants. Like, he's that character in season 3, which is so funny, like a recurring thing for him. You could go off in the sunset, man, everything that you've ever wanted, you can get. But he's so unsatisfied because he has again, it's that his connection to Barry compels him to do these things that in his mind serve his interest, but don't. In reality, they don't, because it always plays out in the worst possible case for him. Here we see that again, but now he's in a totally different environment. But at the same time, he has this love-hate, selfish relationship with Barry that compels him to do the things that he does. And I just love him because his scenes go back and forth from being like, wow, Stephen Root's like being so dramatic, and then it'll just end on a joke, and I'm like, well, that's typical Fuches. And I love him in the show. He's just this, I'm like Barry. I mean, everyone's self-destructive in this show, but he's probably the most self-destructive character because it's like, you could be happy, just move on, but he can't let it go. His pride and his ego are what drives him, his id, and he's not paying attention to his environment, or he's not thinking things through. He's all action all the time. And that's what gets him in trouble. But he's still great. And I love just the back and forth between him. And there's great scenes with him and Bill Hader, obviously, who they finally reunite after they were kind of separated for season 3. Here they're back together. It's like, this is a recipe for disaster. But also just his interactions with FBI agents who want more information from him. Those are really comedic. And so again, it's a great balance of the drama of Stephen Root and the comedy of Stephen Root. And then Henry Winkler, as Gene Cousineau, who is this kind of failed actor because he spurned so many people decades ago, and so the only thing he could do was teaching. And Henry Winkler is absolutely amazing in this series, and he along with the character Jim Moss, I forget the actor's name. I gotta look up the actor's name in a bit, but the actor's amazing, who plays Detective Moss's father. He, is the one that is responsible basically for Barry's downfall in season 3. And he could walk away perfectly happy with his son, with his grandson. But his thing again is his selfishness. He's always won. Now that he's gotten a taste of the limelight again, he has this, hit, kind of the actor studio kind of thing, the show going on. And then his name is constantly in the papers and on the news, and everyone wants to talk to him and interview him and things. He's like, I was initially doing these for the right reasons, but now I want to exploit those reasons and just to continue to prop myself up. And he is doing he is putting everyone at risk with the stuff that he's saying especially in the second episode. It's like, oh my God. I mean, just lying through his teeth. But at the same time, being really funny about it. But there's always this darkness to the humor. But I'm like, this is going to have huge ramifications. And it's going to get really nasty. I was like, because I love Henry Winkler, the Fonz, and all that. You definitely, I think in terms of just his character, seemingly he seemed to be getting better in season 3. Despite still being selfish, but it's like, okay, you're finally doing the right things, even though you're kind of harassed into doing them, and for good reason by the Jim Moss character. But it's like, okay, you could walk away from this, but he's like, nope, he's undoing everything at this point. It's like, this is bad, but he's great. I mean, Henry Winkler is amazing in this show. I think he got an Emmy nomination or one, so love him. Sarah Goldberg, I think she's kind of one of the unsung actors in this show, as is the character of Sally, who again was one of Gene Cousineau's students. And she's very much representative of that, that struggling actor wanting to get into the Hollywood system, but is so continuously having her career undercut by her own selfishness and ego and her rage. Too. We get a little bit more of her background. We always heard about it, especially with her boyfriend, and that caused her to kind of, I think, never get over that, and the PTSD, and that's always kind of controlled. That's been one of the driving factors in her life, but she's also exploited her own trauma to make something and lie about it. Here we see more of her family life in these first 2 episodes, and we see kind of what her 2 parents are. You have her mother, again, I forget the actor's name off the top of my head, but the actress who played her mother and father. But with Sally's mother, she's very much she's just disappointed in her daughter. It's a combination of 2 things. I think she's just generally disappointed in her daughter, which I'm like, oh, that's why she is the way she is. But then she's also the one that's the most honest about her. most honest about Sally and like what she is and what she does and, what's compelled her. But at the same time, being very emotionally and psychologically abusive to her. And her father is the complete opposite of the mother, where the father, it was very much this kind of Midwestern sensibilities, just like, oh, everything's going to be okay. Just work for me. Everything is going to be great. He just indulges her constantly. It's like, oh, this whole relationship you have with her parents, this was a recipe for of disaster in the very beginning. One parent, very dismissive, very disappointed over, always saying that she's the problem. And the other one saying that she's like the most perfect thing in the world. That's why Sally is the way she is. Now it's like, oh, it makes sense. And Sarah Goldberg does such a great job with that and really showcasing that. And, again, she, like everyone else in this show, she's being undone by her own selfishness. She is realizing, I can exploit. Her whole thing is I can continue to exploit my own trauma and my connection to Barry so I can further my career. It's like, God, you're not learning. You can move on. You can be happy, but no. And that's funny. Like, seemingly, at least at the start, like the happiest characters in this show are the two, like, gangsters, NoHo Hank and Cristobal, who are the gay couple. One's a Chechen mobster. The other one was, I think, a mobster to the Bolivians, to a South American or Central American criminal group. But, like, yeah, they're these two guys who are just like, yeah, we're part of this, criminal lifestyle. But we just kind of want to just be gay and happy. I'm like, good for you. Good for you. And, certain situations got worse for them in season 3. And here, again, they seemingly are free from everything. Their respective organizations are kind of undone, and now they can live their lives, but they're so used to still indulging in that criminal lifestyle that they can't help themselves. Again, it's the selfishness, and that's putting them in danger. A lot of the best comedies from them, at least for these first 2 episodes, other than Stephen Root, it's definitely them, and they're great. But like, NoHo Hank, he still has this like weird connection to Barry, despite like wanting to kill him and then wanting to save him, wanting to kill him again, wanting to save him again. And he views Barry like as a friend. I think like NoHo Hank's whole thing is because he came from the Chechen mob, but he was also a gay man, so he had to hide that part of himself. And he's never been really able to commiserate with someone before, other than Cristobal, right? Who is still part of the same environment. He feels some type of kinship in Barry, and that's why he still wants to help him, even though Barry does not give a shit about NoHo Hank, which I've always found very funny. But that's led to so many problems here, and we see the same situation playing out again. And again, just going back and forth, where he wants to help him, and maybe wants to do other things to Barry too. But it's like, of all the characters that I want that despite the fact that they did horrible things, and they did, NoHo Hank and Cristobal, their love story was kind of like the most wholesome thing about season 3, and you want them to survive that whole ordeal of Cristobal's family and his crazy wife. But man, again, it's these decisions they're making. But the thing is, it's not like, oh, it's so frustrating that, like, why would you do that? It makes sense for these characters because they can't help themselves because of their ego, their selfishness, their narcissism. But of anyone that deserves to be happy, it's the two of them. And I hope even, hey, we'll see where everything happens. At the end of this series, Chet, I would not be shocked if a lot of these people either end up dead or in jail based on how things are playing out, at least right now. But if anyone can survive this entire scenario, I do hope it's NoHo Hank and Cristobal, and they can somehow eke out like a little slice of happiness, even if it is difficult, even if their lives are challenging. Like I would hope for them. But it's still great. It's just like all these characters seem to have like a lack of understanding of consequences. But it makes sense for where all they came from. Whether it is working for a criminal organization or whether it's working for the very selfish industry that is Hollywood. I love all that. So it's a great strong start so far for this season. I'm enjoying all the storylines, Chet. None of them feel weaker than the other. I just, if I can make a prediction, I do feel like it's not going to end well for anyone. And at the same time, it's like, yeah, they don't really deserve to be happy because of all the choices that they've made. And I feel like, I'm hoping, but at the same time, I do feel like Bill Hader and his writers are going to end this on a really strong note, and they're going to honor their characters. Because it's been consistently great for the last 3 seasons, Chad. Barry last year was my favorite show. And last year we had amazing TV. I mean, everything from new shows like House of the Dragon to just the finale of Better Call Saul, which was such a wonderful final season, to just amazing like other like dramedies and comedies like The Bear. You know, it's like, yeah, to me, Barry's just like the cream of the crop. It's so good, the writing. So, and the other thing about this too, it's just kind of really refreshing, especially after watching, you know, and again, it's the quality levels are definitely, the divide is wide in terms of quality, but like watching The Mandalorian, you know, where it's just filled with so much filler, and there's like not a moment. Oh, Peacemaker was excellent too. Absolutely. I love Peacemaker. Boys, another great show. A lot of great content across different genres. But, you know, Barry is the show, like, unlike The Mandalorian, which I feel like we could tell, like, the story this season, like, 3 or 4 episodes, and yet we're getting 8. And there's so much filler. Like, Barry does not have filler, like, at all. They have 30-minute episodes, 8 episodes per season. It's the 3 things I always talk about. It is plot and story. It is character development and world building, and they constantly do those 3 things every time, and layering that with, you know, some comedy too, of course. But yeah, it's off to a really strong start, Cheb. I don't think it's gonna end well for a lot of these people, but that's just my thoughts on at least the first 2 episodes of Barry. Yikes. And the bestest place on earth. What do you guys think of the first 2 episodes of Barry season 4? I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and I wanted to take the time to tell you about the movie of the week, a film that I really enjoy and one that I think you will too. This week's movie is the John Wick trilogy. Just in time for the release of John Wick Chapter 4, the trilogy stars Keanu Reeves and follows a legendary hitman who is forced out of retirement to seek revenge against the men who killed his dog, a final gift from his recently deceased wife. If anyone is interested in purchasing this fantastic film series, please make use of the Amazon affiliate link below in the video description. Your purchase of the film not only earns me a helpful commission, but any purchase you may make after clicking the link itself for 24 hours would help earn me additional commissions as well. Doesn't matter if it's a Blu-ray, a video game, a pair of socks, or a washing machine. Everything within 24 hours of that click can really help the channel. So go ahead and check out the film, enjoy browsing, and enjoy shopping.